Stay tuned to the end of this video for a big announcement. How's that for a tease just quietly? Oh, look at Daz go, the salesman that he is. But we are going to be reacting to Twomey's Inside of the Draft article. I got the notification at work that this had come through and I could not wait to dive in and give my thoughts. Haven't read it yet, so we're going to do that. Not going to read it to you word for word, obviously, but as we go through, we're going to check all this out. I am a draft nerd. Twomey, of course, king of the draft nerds with all of the inside info. I've wanted to interview or get Cal on the channel for like 2 years now. Unfortunately, can never seem to get a hold of him, which sucks. Other creators, I've seen really good interviews with him. The one he did with Saints TV, if you're a St Kilda fan, I hope you watched that one because it was awesome. Jake did an amazing job. The team at Saints TV did a great job with Cal. So even if you haven't watched Steve, even though it's after the draft and you already know what happened, just, I don't know, go watch it because it was great. It was awesome. All those things. But it's really cool, I think, just to see like the behind the scenes stuff, because as much as you can sort of debate and so much draft content gets watched, obviously, and not just, I'm very grateful that you guys watch me, obviously, but other creators and of course get all their draft stuff watched really well. I think the draft itself has kind of taken off in this social media age. So seeing how it works now, you get that behind the scenes look, the peek behind the curtain, if you will, I think is pretty cool as draft consumers. So let's check this out. We're dubbing it the Grlj Spill. If there's one thing that Cal loves, it's his rhymes. He really does. When Richmond selected Grlj with its second pick in last week's draft, it set in chain a motion of selections and consequences that saw Essendon and Melbourne land their targets. One club trade back down the order. That would be us, I'm assuming. And another push up and a ripple effect that lasted until the early 20s. Dun, dun, dun. It's not that the Grlj pick was unexpected. Well, I'd like to think it was because I nailed it. And I'd like some credit for that. But for a month, he had been viewed as one of 4 leading contenders for Richmond's pair of choices, which was narrowed to 3 after its first pick of Sam Grlj. Yep, absolutely. But the central pick of a first round of 25, 100%. Let's scroll down. West Coast had settled on Dersma for some time with his Casey Demons performances, which were pretty damn good, by the way, which is nice. The Eagles called Dersma Wednesday Arvo, hours before the draft, to confirm that he would be their number 1 pick. That's weird. Why would you settle on him and not tell him, oh, they might have traded it? Duh. Would they, though? Not sure. The Eagles had kept the door ajar for an offer to come in. Oh, for either of them. Okay, that makes sense now. But nothing had eventuated. Essendon had put in a final call. That makes me feel less stupid for the mock trade. They tried. Now, of course, I did it for Sullivan Roby, not Cooper Duff Tytler, who, I mean, if they were going to bid on this, you'd think it would have been for CDT. Essendon ended up getting Sullivan Roby anyway, of course. Floated options, but when it became clear the price for pick 2 was going to be similar to the price of pick 1, Essendon didn't formalise a deal proposal because why would you? If they wanted all 3 of those top 10 picks, Essendon should not have done that deal. They didn't. There's nothing wrong with West Coast asking for it. Both of those things could coexist, both of those opinions. West Coast had decided, I've had a cold, which is why I keep scratching my nose here, by the way. Whole house has been crook. West Coast had decided it would bid on Newland and immediately follow it with Dean. I think I had them the other way around in my mock draft, but, who cares? But in settling on Duffma, I don't think my jokes are allowed to get mocked anymore. If this is what the man that is leading the charge for the AFL draft space is going with, my God. But Dersma and CDT double. They'd also let the Calder Cannons big man know about their bidding plan, so he was across the strategy. He wasn't fussed what number he was selected. I mean, yeah, that would be weird, wouldn't it? Like, I know nothing about CDT as a person, obviously, but let's just say an 18-year-old, not him. Why on God's green earth would you turn around and go, well, if you're not taking me at 3, go forth and multiply? That would be strange if you did that. Simply Boyd to be heading at number 4 to the Eagles. Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you? For sure. Sam Grlj and Sullivan Roby were part of the Eagles' next group on the order of available non-tied prospects. That's really interesting that Sam Grlj, who I, again, really liked, and it's not that anyone hated, but a couple of the top-end clubs, of course, Richmond included, they ended up taking him, that meeting in Mildura being the linchpin, the confirmation, if you will, that they were taking him. I think a lot of, power rankings and stuff like that would have had Sam Grlj at around the 7-8 mark, so there you go. Interesting. Richmond is expected. So, yeah, Dylan Patterson and then Annabelle. Some clubs rated Annabelle as the best player in the draft. Others thought it could have been Patterson. Yeah. Some of us are on the same page as Dan Annabelle being one of the better players in the draft, if not the best one, because you don't need a highlight reel to be a star. What would I know? But we can scroll down. 5 days before the draft, Roy Geishan and list manager Blair Hartley took a 1 p.m. flight from Melbourne to Mildura. Do we need to know it was 1 p.m.? Interesting. They solidified their plan that he was their man, and by 5 p.m. they were on the flight home, perusing more under-18 edits of him on the way back. Cool. Post-draft, it became clear that a number of clubs ranked coming a top 3 talent. Sick. Even winning some Dangerfield-like comparisons. Now, here's the interesting bit. When clubs say that, he's Dangerfield-like, it's not Danger in his prime. It's Danger when he was 18. So as long as we know that, it's not, as long as people go, like, when they go, like, plays like, it's what they play like early in their career. It's not what they are now. Or it shouldn't be, because that would be ridiculous. Along with Cumming, they'd narrowed their group to 4 players for their 2 live picks, Xavier Taylor, Sullivan, Roby, and Grlj. I think at some point in the last 3 drafts, I'd mocked all of those players to Richmond, so pretty happy with that. All made sense. Taylor is a long-term Nick Vlosten replacement. Nailed that. Roby is another midfielder after their tall, heavy 2024 draft crop, and Grlj for some much-needed speed. I do find it really interesting how much they wanted speed, Richmond did, because the best clubs, so Brisbane, Geelong, are not known for the quickness in ball movement. Now, you don't want to be a copycat league, I understand that. But if they believe the next iteration of premiership success is speed on the ball, that's really interesting because a lot of players are quick, but might not be overly skillful either. I'm sure if you're barracking for a club right now, you can think of a player or two on your list that applies to. On the Tuesday, clubs began to put the puzzle together, knowing the only player Richmond could confidently slide down and still get was Grlj, but neither Melbourne nor Essendon put forward a trade offer for either of their picks. More than fair. The only table-to-table bid was Adelaide on draft night, with the Crows offering their first-round pick this year and next year for Richmond's second pick. I assume that was for Dyson Sharp. I don't think it says it here. Happy to chance their arm. I mean, yeah. Why wouldn't you? If that's what you want to do, who's going to knock you for that, you know? We know who the Bombers got. Excuse me. So Farrow and Roby. I love the Jacob Farrow pick so much. I really do. If Roby or Taylor was picked by the Tigers instead of Grlj, the Bombers would have gone with Farrow and then Dyson Sharp next, and then would have seen what got past the Demons. Ooh. But because of their intel on the Demons' lack of interest in Sharp at that point in the draft, plus the fact Melbourne just traded in Steele and drafted Harvey Langford last year, the Bombers were prepared to risk him getting through to their 3rd pick in the first round after they traded for with Carlton in the days leading to the draft. It was less cat and mouse and more tactical. Now that shit is cool. I love that. That's where Melbourne come into things. If Richmond choose Grlj, it gave a much more alive chance one of Taylor or Roby would be available at its pick. Again, more than fair. And here's the thing. Now, I love the fact that Cal's done this article. Why can't we know this in the coverage? Like, at the end of the day, and I get, the interviews, but the interviews are more like, are you happy with your selections? Well, no shit. Nah, we're real, imagine Matt Rosa, right? Matt, are you happy that Jacob and Dyson, and Sullivan Roby, right? Are you happy that Sullivan and Jacob got to your selections? Why would Matt Rosa go, no, we're actually pretty devastated that those are the 2 guys we got, but, we'll figure this shit out. Of course he's not going to say that. But if they turn around and go, well, this was the strategy, this is why we wanted Sharp, this is this is what we were thinking, the tactics, the to and fro, the table tennis match, I think it'll just breathe a little bit more life into it. I think waiting until now, like we're at November 26th, the draft was a week ago today. That's a long time to be like figuring this out, is the thing that I would say. The D's also breathed a sigh of relief when Essendon called out Farrows. Their plan to join Latrell Pickett with his cousin Cozier was about to come to fruition. So that means Melbourne would have taken Farrow. Interesting. So where does Latrell Pickett go? And this is why I love the hypotheticals, right? Would North have taken Pickett over Doveston? Again, we'll never know, but that's what makes this fun. Would the Bombers have taken... Well, if they didn't take Farrow and they took the risk on Sharp, you'd probably say there's no one else they would have taken there. This is where it could get a little bit more complicated. Can we say they took like Oscar Taylor just to make this more interesting? I don't know. Okay, well, let's say they took Sharp first and Melbourne take Xavier Taylor and Jacob Farrow. Do Essendon take Doveston? Do they take Latrell Pickett? Do they take Oscar Taylor? Ooh, this is the hypotheticals that we love. West Coast called with a deal to trade up from its third pick to the D selection for a future second. But the Eagles wouldn't have known Melbourne's efforts to land Pickett and keep it under wraps. Very few did. Ooh. Fortnight before, Jason Taylor had informed Kevin Sheehan that Pickett was a chance to be in their mix and that they could consider bringing him to night one at Marvel, but it had to be kept under tight control, for the Demons knew the work Essendon, GWS and Hawthorn had put into assessing Pickett as an option. Boy, if you reckon the Hawks taking a small forward was a weird option originally, boy, that would have set off Hawthorn Twitter. My God. On Monday, 2 days before the draft, the Bombers had Pickett and Oscar Taylor to the club. Well, that answers that question. For Essendon, it was interested in the Lightning small forward, but also used the catch-up as a chance to see how much work other clubs had done on the Glenelg goal kicker. Fair. See, this is cool. You could be totally bored right now. I would kind of like understand, but I love this shit. I really do. I don't know how much more of this is to go. Yeah. We're on the Cozzy bit. I think we've covered that nicely. Melbourne had been strongly linked to Cam Nairn, who ended up going to the Hawks, absolutely. But with Grill's selection at Richmond pushing Taylor down the board, it meant one of the big five. So, of course, Taylor, Roby, Cumming, Dersmer, and Duff Tytler were still available to partner alongside Pickett. If Grlj had not been picked by Richmond or Essendon had picked Taylor instead of Farrow, the Ds would likely have grabbed Cam Nairn and then taken Pickett. Well, there you go. So Cam Nairn, taken at 20 by the Hawks, would have gone at 11. I wonder if that makes Hawks fans feel better about Cam, to be honest. But more about the Hawthorn draft a little bit later on. It's got to do with the announcement later on, just as a secondary tease. Essendon's plan to get Sharp had worked. If the alternative had occurred and Sharp was one of their first two picks, the Bombers could have landed on halfback Josh Lindsay, which came after they bundled 3 picks for Carlton's for sale pick 9. But that Sharp selection wasn't without real interest. West Coast tried to slide up 4 spots. Respect. Adelaide got busy on the phone again. Okay, so I was right about the Adelaide and Sharp thing, which again makes sense. Not only the South Australian, but the type of midfielder that Adelaide needed. And if it wasn't him, they didn't want another one. I respect that. Maybe a Sam Swadling might have been the go, but he wasn't available at that pick 50, of course, when they took Archie Ludowick, which is nice. The Crows threw everything at the Bombers, tabling an offer of their first-round pick that night, their 26 first and thirds for pick 13 and a 27 second. Ooh. Collingwood had flagged potential interest in Sharp pre-draft and would have needed to use a future first-rounder to get in. No rival interest was swaying the Bombers. I mean, that's got to make you excited as a Bombers fan, surely. By that point, Hawthorn had been on the phones with Grlj, Farrow, and then Pickett off the board, with the Hawks were open to shifting back down the board, knowing they had a group of players who would be there with a bunny hop backwards. Again, that works. So Grlj, who I don't really think I'd mock to the Hawks all that much. Farrow I had, and Pickett, definitely not. GWS saw its opportunity to get up the board, so offered a future second rounder. We wanted Melbourne's because Melbourne are going to be worse than the Giants this year, but instead took the Giants one. That's fine. The Hawks might have placed a bid on the Sydney Academy prospect Harry Kyle. I doubt it. Anything past pick 11, Sydney was comfortable matching. Nice. The other reason for the Giants trade up was to own the pick. Pick possession is 10/10 of the law in drafts and is a key factor in clubs stopping other clubs from outbidding them. The Giants had seen their other fancy players, Grlj, Pickett, and Farrow, taken up. So Oscar Taylor, he was the last remaining player of their group. That's more than fair. Giants might have traded back and picked up draft collateral if Taylor was gone. Brisbane was asked by the Giants if it would jump back in using a future first rounder, but the Lions weren't interested in parting. That's more than fair. If you're still following, well done. North Melbourne's big trading work, which if you want to know my thoughts about North Melbourne doing that deal and the one last year with Richmond, you can go and watch that video. I really appreciate everyone that's given me good feedback on that. Lockie Doverston was a priority for them to add to their small forward division. Awesome. If Doverston was off the board, Lindsay would have been the Roos pick. Can't complain with either of those. If they had West Coast and Adelaide also pursue that selection using their first round pick plus a future second. But having done the work to get up the board, North was in no mood to shift back again. And Threadgold, who was North's first pick on night 2, was ranked not too far from the Doverston choice. Hell yeah. Well done, North. West Coast used their first round pick next year plus a future second. Wow. Whoa. Hang on. That would be pick 1 or 2. That's nuts. No pressure. Lockie? Holy Moses. Well, you reckon West Coast fans are upset about how that team selection went for them? Imagine going, you've lost pick 1 or 2 next year for a small forward. Now again, Lockie could be a star. I'm not denying that for a moment. And he was very good last year. But just imagine the Eagles' meltdown if that took place. Holy crap. The Hawks decided again to trade down the order to grab another future second-round pick. That was St Kilda's. Did anyone say Zach Merritt, Zach Butters, and Bailey Humphrey? The Eagles shifted up the order, placed the bid on Jai Murray. They quickly matched. Absolutely. An AFL medical report an hour before the draft communicated to clubs that the tough midfielder would be missing 3 months with a fracture in his leg or stress fracture in his leg. Oh, boy. This was where things got very tight after the Adensall bit, but can thank the Giants for getting Adensall because their efforts to land the ball getter were made possible because some Sydney picks in the second round had been wiped out by the early bid on Kyle. So if that bid had been later, the Swans would have matched differently, leaving the Suns' own pick's value not be worth as much. Holy Moses. The Suns coming within just 5 draft value index points of not being able to secure Adensall and their 5th Academy graduate, Kobe Coulson. Whoa. That's cool. The Eagles had used that second rounder to secure the selection, knowing Hawthorn was offering it to other rivals too. Fitted the bill for West Coast. Josh Lindsay did, absolutely. Hawthorn by that point held pick 20, mulled over one more slide back to Adelaide's pick, but risked losing access to Nan, who the Crows and the Bulldogs had also scouted closely. Their hop, skip and jump wouldn't have started if Grlj wasn't taken by the Tigers, whereby under that scenario likely would have got into the Hawks' original pick, but the Hawks pivoted and future-proofed its draft hand. This is why the Hawks did this, absolutely. After the Nan pick came the Dogs, who had been sweating on a halfback getting through to their selection, got Lucky Carmichael. So we love that in a big way. We can scroll down. Sydney, the early Cole bid had stretched things, but they prioritised keeping a pick in the mid-30s in the open pool, and they ended up getting Billy Crudy with that pick, or am I missing? Javan Filippo. They got that. Having attempted to get up the ranks, the Crows pick finally rolled around and they decided on Mitch Marsh, who edged out Ludowici for the spot, and they got at pick 50 as well. So as far as Adelaide are concerned, they won the draft. Imagine going into a draft and going, at the pick available to us. So obviously Marsh and Ludowici weren't number 1 and 2. Dyson Sharp was, from what we know. But imagine going, 2 of our top 3 guys on the board we're going to get with pick 22 and 50. Well done. Met Aiden Schubert in draft week and took him at 22, having also considered Harley Barker. I am a big Harley Barker fan. We ended up getting his wingman mate, Matty LeRae, at 56 anyway. So don't mind this in the slightest. The Cats had its eye on Barker, Marsh, and Threadgold with Ludowick not far behind. I think I mocked Ludowick to the Cats later on as well. But Geelong knew one of its 3 players was going to be available. They obviously rated Barker higher than the other 2. That's why they took him. Higher than Threadgold. Marsh was already gone. Excuse me. So, Freo closed out with Adam Swede. Absolutely. I think this might be it. Yep, that'll be it. That's cool. So effectively from here, the toing and froing is awesome. And the only thing that I would say is it shouldn't have taken a week for all of this to come out because this info is really cool. And I think would be really cool to know as quickly as you can. Now, it's not Cal's fault. Absolutely not. I love this. The draft nerd in me loves this in a significant way. And hopefully you enjoyed the live reaction to it as well. Or if you didn't, I don't know, watch something else. But the channel announcement. Now, I've tried horror, cricket, and it's been difficult to sort of launch in there with the commitment that those topics deserve, just with family life and all that. So I thought, what can I do to fully keep footy going, but make something else? And a lot of you have been asking for my thoughts and dissections on Hawthorn's draft haul. So why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone and officially launch Daz Talks Hawthorn. Now, this year, I'd done all my Hawthorn game reactions, and you guys seem to really like them. All of them will then go to that channel. And everything on there will be Hawthorn-based, with all of the bias and all of the fun and love there. I hope that doesn't mean you unsubscribe from here, as I'm knocking lights over. But in the description of this video, the channel link is going to be there. And I will collaborate with Daz Talks Footy to ensure that Hawthorn fans can get access to that content. But Daz Talks Hawthorn is real. It's here. The first video is going to be my draft dissection for the Hawks. A bunch of preseason content, video breakdowns are going to come as we launch into a massive 26 season. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. I appreciate you very much. See you soon.